Welcome to Clean Plates, where every bite tells a story. I'm Brian Romaine, joining you on a culinary journey to understand the whys behind our diets and desires. Welcome to Clean Plates, where every bite tells a story. Today, my guest is Evan Slaughter. Evan is a comedian, he's a veteran, and he's also a fitness influencer. Evan, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm just stoked to be here and have a chat with you.
I'm excited as well. I'm really glad that we got to just be able to connect and do this. This is going to be a really great conversation. So tell me a little bit about, your relationship with food growing up in your household.
Yeah, so food for me, I grew up in a very, pretty typical middle class, household. Kind of grew up, in an apartment first. It was me and my mom and dad and my brother. So four of us in a little 2-bedroom apartment. Me and my brother shared a room. And then as I got to about 5th grade, I think, is when we were able to get a house. My dad got a house in Birmingham, Alabama, where I'm from. We moved into the house. And so it was a very middle class kind of upbringing. And food was always just something that ate a lot of fast food. My mom wasn't this big cook that, was preparing meals and stuff like that. I had school lunches a lot. So I ate at school, didn't really pack and bring a lunch. So it was just always kind of treated as something that was a lot of times on the go, eating a lot on the go. And we would have dinners and stuff every now and then where we'd sit down and eat, but it just always felt like food for me wasn't always very deliberate. It was just something that you had to eat, and you're hungry, you ate. And for me, I liked always finding things that I liked, in life. Like if I liked it, I was going to, that's what I wanted, and I kind of treated food the same way. Well, as a kid and as someone growing up, a lot of people like sweets or junk food or this and that. So I definitely had that where I ate a decent amount of junk food,
And so would you say that there was an emotional connection to food as a child?
As a child, there probably was a little bit, but most of it was more of an emotion of like happiness or joy whenever I would eat something not good for me, sweets or dessert or something like that,
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that just because a lot of people don't really realize until like retrospect that, it's always a lot of good memories, even if it is food that isn't so great for you. So it's all a different world of connection. And how would you say that connection over time has, as you aged?
So over time, that connection has definitely changed. Whenever I got out of rehab after getting off opiates in 2021, I was at a place where I was kind of starting over, and it was going to be the first time for a while where I didn't have some kind of substance that I was taking every day in order to change how I feel or felt. And so that was, new for me. That was kind of a struggle. It was like, well, that's also why I was glad that I went to rehab for 3 months, because I had done some rehabs before in my life. I've been to rehab more than once. So I got a master's degree in drug rehabilitation, basically. But the last one really stuck because it was 3 months, and so the point of that was like you were learning how to enjoy life again without, taking something or drinking something or whatever in order to enjoy life. And the reason I bring that up is because when I got out of rehab is when I gained a good amount of weight. And I gained the weight because I felt like looking back at it now, I felt like I was using food as almost like a little bit of a replacement for drugs. And I didn't realize that was happening because I just never really felt like I was a food addict or had any kind of, anything like that. But I learned that there is kind of a connection like that, similar to drugs. So it's like if I take, an opiate or whatever, for me, that's going to, make me feel good. It's going to make me happy. It's going to give me feelings of euphoria and stuff like that. So my brain tells me, let's keep doing that, Well, when I took that away and I started, finding a little bit of comfort in food, I noticed my brain was kind of reacting the same way. Like I would, start getting excited about what I was going to eat that night, and order a big pizza or something, or eat something sweet or some ice cream. I really love ice cream. And it started my brain started kind of like getting excited about it, like, ooh, what are we going to have tonight? Let's order some pizza. So I told myself, well, at least it's not drugs, at least I'm not doing drugs again. It's better that it's food. But I learned real quick that can be a danger as well, because I put on about 100 pounds from doing that. So
Right.
all of a sudden I blow up and I gain all this weight. And so my emotional connection changed, as I, especially in my adult years, because I started to understand the emotional connection to food better. I started to be aware of it. So it's like, all right, if I'm feeling this way about pizza or feeling this way about ice cream or whatever, I need to be aware of that and notice that, hey, this can become a problem too. Like I can get addicted in a sense to eating bad, which is what turned into weight gain for me, a lot of weight gain, which ultimately that can cause health problems.
Right.
So it can be a dangerous thing, similar to being addicted to drugs.
That's a really, really cool perspective, just because I fully can relate to that in the sense where, as I was just telling you earlier, I quit drinking in 2020, and that also coincided with a lot of activities. Just because I tell people that when I would drink, I was kind of down to do drugs. People are always, if they're offering you something and you're already drunk, I mean, taking a hit of something or a dip or a toot or a snort, all the terms, it really is a lot easier to fall into that category. And then in turn, it also coincides with my relationship with food, because if I was wasted, eating terrible things just tasted like gourmet food. All the bad stuff tasted even better. And when I went into rehab for 2 months in 2020, there was a whole perspective because of shift, because you're in a house with 10 other dudes and two house managers, and everybody has these different eating habits. And I would witness a lot of different choices that people were making with that allotted $80 a week that they were allowed to spend on groceries. And so it's a thing where you realize what your real relationship is with something when you don't have these other outside influences, especially substance, where it was weighing me into these different lanes of, gaining weight in places I didn't even know I could gain weight. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking like shit. I'm feeling like shit again, but it's not from drugs and alcohol. It's from the food that I was eating. So that was up until I'd say last year that I wasn't like going hard, in those last couple of years. But I'd say just last year is when I finally realized what the potential of the relationship with food can be in just the most positive of ways.
Yeah, that's a great point, because there is a positive, vast positive aspect towards it, and learning it. Whenever I started to actually care about my health again, I realized that over a lot of times in my life, the majority of my life, I would say, right now, that I didn't really care about my health. And what I mean by that is if I was into working out or exercise, it was because I wanted to look a certain way. Now I feel like the reason I think about exercise and all that and worked on my weight and did all these things is because not only do I like the results and how it makes you look and feel, it's because I want to have longevity in life. I want to be healthy and be able to live and enjoy as many years as I'm allowed to have on this earth, And so whenever I started to feel that way about myself, it changed how I viewed food and what I was putting into my body. Because now it's something that I have to look at like, okay, in order to, work out this week or work out today or, plan my week out or whatever, I need to be fueling myself in a way that allows me to do that, the best way that I can. And so it becomes something that instead of looking at it like, could be potentially a bad thing. I eat all this junk food and all this stuff. Well, now it's become a good thing. And it's become something that I'm getting more and more interested in. And because of the way that I view it now, because of the fact that it's helping fuel, my goals physically.
I totally feel you on that, because last year as well is when it stopped being finally this like, there was just this moment, I would say, where the mental glass shattered, where I was just like, oh wow, I've just been in that same camp as everybody who wants big arms and a six pack. Like, you just want something versus understanding what your body needs for real fuel. And then that is that's what's going to fuel those workouts, those activities, those things that make you feel even better when you're doing them. And then in turn, the results just started coming in.
Yeah.
The results just started kind of coming my way finally when I focused on things like going to a CrossFit class with a coach, somebody who is going to show me how to properly lift so that these, progression can actually happen with weight. And then, in turn, all the other things with my body feeling amazing. It's not that I'm saying this in a negative way, like I could care less what I look like, but now I just know I look good because I feel so good.
Right. Yeah. And that's the main thing, if you feel happy, you feel good, and you're being productive in life and you're able to do the things that you want to do, physically and all that kind of stuff, then that's what's important, at least for me, that's kind of how I was looking at it, because whenever I was gaining all that weight when I got out of rehab and I start doing my thing on social media and I start kind of having some success with some videos I'm posting, and it's kind of starting to kind of build and grow. While I was gaining that weight, it was happening at the same time. I was gaining weight, and then I was also starting to, have success on social media. But the point is that during that time, even though I was out of shape physically, mentally, I was probably the most mentally healthy I've ever been in my life. And what I mean by that is that I didn't care what people thought about me anymore. I wasn't concerned with all that. I was just learning to love myself. And that was a big thing, and learning to love myself while being, essentially obese was what was really powerful for me about that, because I used to be so concerned with how I looked or how others perceived me or what other people thought about me, to where it would just kind of drive me crazy and cause me to, do things like I would do drugs. I would do all these things because I was just putting all this pressure on myself and just not enjoying life and all that. Well, now, to the flip side of that, it's like, man, even though I was heavy and out of shape and out of weight, didn't matter. I loved life and I was enjoying life and I wanted to be alive. And that's what led to the desire to make some changes physically, is that, well, now I'm actually enjoying life and I want to be on this earth and I want to have longevity. So let me do something about my health,
I really love that you speak on that point in general, as far as getting your mental health in check first before you really even go after anything physical, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, really, is because you're not going to be going to the gym, hanging out with these different communities, building the types of relationships you've been building over X amount of time if your mental space is just not doing great. So good one on you for really nailing that in and tacking it in with your sobriety, and then going out there and just doing what you do best and speaking your comedic voice, which I think is strong and present. And I think that that's so cool that you do that. Where do you get your comedic influence from?
That's a good question. I've always loved comedy ever since I was a kid. I mean, felt like kind of born with just that gift of humor and comedic timing and just a good sense of humor. And that's something that I kind of just have always, was always the funny one, was always the one cracking jokes or doing this and that. But I think for me, a lot of it comes from, sure, I have influences, that I love in comedy, from just Will Ferrell to Shane Gillis, Theo Vaughn, Nate Bargatze, a big stand-up comedian, Dave Chappelle, all these different things. Well, I love a little bit of different things about each person, in that I look at in comedy and that I watch. There's something I take from each little thing, but at the same time, kind of learned how to just, be myself. And that was the biggest thing, is like, I think comedians that are really good at comedy are the ones that are just naturally born to do it. They're just naturally funny. So it's almost like, well, I mean, no matter what they really say or talk about, they've got a way of delivering it in a way that's funny, people find funny. And I think that's something that I kind of realized about myself, is I feel like I have that gift of just being able to be funny and by being myself, So I think the influence for sure of all these different actors or comedians that I like and watch and stuff. Yeah, there's things about that I find funny and see if, I can have my version of that or whatever. But ultimately, it's just what I learned by watching them. It's like, man, they're just being themselves, Like, I think Will Ferrell is just, when he goes and plays these roles and stuff, I think it's just him being himself. And he's just got that gift of humor,
Yeah, I think you really nailed the point there, because your comedy is very original. It's very one of one year stuff. I think it's very cool that you have this fitness tie in with things, but at the same rate, you are very good at keeping it to yourself and your comedy, which I think is great, because it truly does speak its own comedic voice.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I really just kind of had to learn to, and that was a part of it too. It's like whenever I started, I was talking about earlier, like not caring what other people think about me. Well, that I mean that in a healthy way, and it just kind of allowed me to just be myself. Because there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, especially doing it on, social media, and you go to make a video, right? It's like, my goal is to make people laugh every time. My goal is to make the funniest video every time. Like, if, last video did great, funny, whatever, next time I want to do better. So there's pressure that comes with that. A lot of pressure I put on myself. It's like, man, I really want this to be funny. I really want this to be funny. And a lot of times I just have to sit back and relax and remember, well, is it funny to you? Like me, is it funny to me? Do I enjoy doing it? Am I having a good time doing it? Am I doing something that, it contributes to society in a positive way? And I think laughter and comedy definitely do that. So it's like I make sure I check all these boxes. Like, if I'm doing those things and I'm enjoying it and having a good time, then that's what it comes down to, So that was the biggest thing. It's like, man, I just had to learn to relax, be myself, and if someone doesn't find something funny that I post, doesn't matter, as long as I enjoy doing it and I'm having a good time with it and, contributing to society. And so that takes a little bit of the pressure off, I think.
No, I completely understand that. As well as, it seems like you have such a well support, or sorry, I mean that in the way of it seems like you're supported in your community just fully, as well as people love you. I mean, I love reading the comments on your videos, just because it's usually a lot of cheerleading, a lot of,
Right.
Throwing you your proper flowers on just the post itself, because again, it's original comedy. It's funny.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, a lot of times too, I'll force myself. I'll go through times where I won't watch stuff on social media a lot. I won't look at a lot of other reels, because I don't want it to affect, how I'm thinking about something or how I'm viewing something, because I want to keep that originality and that authenticity. And then there's times where I go through and I consume a lot of content, and I look at it, things, and I go, all right, what do I like about this video? Or what did I like about that scenario or whatever, to try to spark an idea. And then I take that idea and I try to turn it into, my version of that or whatever, and make it real and authentic to me. So it kind of goes back and forth a little bit, in terms of like where I get ideas from, or where I come up with a concept from. But coming back to just keeping it original and authentic to me is kind of like the thing that I have to remind myself of every time, because I just want it to be, original and real, that from me, that I put out,
Absolutely. Excuse me. And as a consumer, I would say I'm full support here, just saying that it's doing great, as well as a lot of people want to work with you. I mean, just me scheduling this podcast in the most professional way. I love that everybody's trying to get a piece of you. It's like,
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I've been real fortunate in that aspect. And, the thing I like about that is when I started doing this full time, I didn't know, what that looked like. I didn't even know how people were making money on social media at the time. I knew that you could. I just didn't know how that happened. And then when I started finding success posting videos, especially, it happened really first, I think, it was really close between fitness and pickleball. I do a lot of pickleball stuff, and I do a lot of CrossFit and fitness stuff. And I kind of videos in both of those niches sort of started taking off at the same time. And so I started getting, contacted by different companies in those spaces. Pickleball, the company I work with named Valair, they make the pickleball paddles that I am sponsored by. And I've been with them. I think they were the first or second contract that I signed. And it was like a multi-year deal, and it came, and they wanted me just making comedy with those pickleball paddles. And then other companies start reaching out, and they want me to do this and they want me to do that. And it was cool because, and I like operating that way. I don't want to have to, as long as I can do this and operate this way, where I work with people that are contacting and reaching out to me. That's the perfect scenario, instead of having to reach out to brands and say, hey, would love to work with you guys. Here's what I do. Here I am. Here's the kind of content I make. It's like, sure, that's fine doing that. I mean, that's just business. But the difference is, it's like when you work with companies that are reaching out to you, then usually that means they know what they're going to get. They know what you do. They know what you put out. They know what kind of content you like making, what your comedic presence is like. They know these things already going into it, and that's what they want. So it takes a lot of the pressure off, and it makes it easier to work with those types of companies because they like what you're doing, whereas the flip side to that is like, you have to kind of go out and reach out to brands and say, hey, would love to partner with you guys. Kind of, here's what I do. And then you sort of have to sell yourself and show them and see if they like it or not. And so to your point, it's been really nice. And I've been really fortunate to just like, man, as long as companies are contacting me and wanting to work with me in that space or whatever, then that's a great position to be in and operate from, especially in the social media content creating world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember learning a phrase from our mutual buddy, Eric Hinman, relationships over transactions, just because building those relationships and having an actual, core conversations, things you're building with other brands, and they're reaching out to you because they see what you're doing and they're like, yeah, that's what I want, because that's the influence, that's the energy that's coming through. And I think that's great that people are now at a point where they are reaching out to you as opposed to you doing the opposite, because the traction is real. People want to get in on that action. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been really enjoyable. And a lot of these companies, that I have worked with over the years. And I mean, all of them basically, it's been a good relationship. It's been a good experience. A lot of times it's led to, multiple months of work with them and really getting to know these people and really kind of just diving into, further into the world of fitness or the world of pickleball because I'm making content in those spaces and it's helping me to learn more about those things that I'm interested in. And so it's really, really met and created a lot of cool relationships that way.
Yeah, as well as I think at the end of the day, it's pretty awesome too that most of these companies are doing good things for the world, as well as they're helping you live a healthier life, whether it's a modality, whether it's, get blokes, whether it's somebody who's just, providing you really cool clothing like Chubbies or something like that. I think that's so awesome that people are taking care of you. And, the people over at Blokes are just amazing folks. So I think that's really cool that you're doing all of those steps to get your blood work right, do all of that, and then coincide that with the food and all the other things. Because at the end of the day, that's you got to get your blood work done. You got to, keep up on the body.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's cool about it. And Blokes is a great example. RX Smart Gear is another great example. Like these companies that have, especially in the fitness space, that a lot of them, majority of them really contacted me and reached out to me whenever I was, much heavier and much more out of shape. And it was cool because it wasn't about, how I looked. It wasn't about that for them. And it was more about the, they like the stuff that I'm putting out, the comedy stuff, but they also just want to be a part of how my fitness experience. And my fitness experience is not the one that you usually see a lot of on Instagram. It's not the ripped dude, with his shirt off doing all these things. It's a guy that's, really out of shape, really bad out of shape, that's trying to have fun and make some, make people laugh while enjoying the process of getting into shape. And so it's helped me, continue to work on my fitness and learn more and go further and further and push harder because they've motivated me to do that just by being a part of it, and sponsoring the content that I make and me making content for them. And it's just kind of been some accountability, a form of accountability really, where it's like, oh man, these companies they want to work with me. They want me to use their product and stuff. And in order to do that, I've got to exercise, for a lot of them. So it's kind of helped me to stay on the path of getting into better shape.
No, I completely understand that, just because these companies want you around personally. They like you as a human being. They want to see your journey go into a positive direction. They are there to support the idea of you taking care of yourself. So I think that's really awesome that it's kind of a 360 thing where everybody's on board. Everybody wants to see you do good.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, at this point, where are you at with just your journey? I mean, because the last time I all the videos I see more and more comments about people commenting on your chest and your abs, and just you are getting in straight up shape, my man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's been I wouldn't say slow going is the word. Yeah, it took a little while to really kind of get going. Whenever I first started working with Blokes, especially Blokes, because they, helped me get my testosterone levels and stuff straightened out. I started this semaglutide with them, which is essentially Ozempic. That's really helped me learn how to eat right and not eat past when I get full. And so from about, I think in about 11 months is the time that it took to lose the 95 pounds whenever I really started getting after it. So it wasn't necessary. I think that's a pretty decent pace. But because I started really getting more into working out and getting more, and pushing myself further and harder, it's really kind of started to pick up. And then, of course, this, Thanksgiving, Christmas, this last year, I kind of hit a little bit of a wall, and I had several months. I mean, I would say 4 or 5 months where it was just really slow and inconsistent. I was kind of starting to, turn towards some bad habits again in terms of just not eating right, or not being consistent in the gym. And that sort of really slowed down my progress. And I really probably over Christmas put back on a little bit of weight. I was hovering around the 200 mark around Christmas. I would dip down a little bit below it and I would weigh, 197, 198. And then after Christmas, after the holiday season, I was back up to 210 at one point. And so it was a good time for me to kind of reassess and also just, not beat myself up about it, forgive myself a little bit, give myself some grace and say, hey, look, it's not a big deal, man. Just, refocus, realign. What do you need to fix here? What do you need to stop doing? And that's huge for me because I get real, a lot of times I feel like if I make a mistake in this area or I do that, or, I did the same thing with drugs a lot. Like when I would relapse, it was the end of the world, and I felt like I just had to go full back into being a drug addict again. Or it's the same thing with not working out and being, getting out of shape. It's like in my mind, I can tell myself, well, if I slip up or I start doing bad and not going to the gym or whatever, then I just go down that road again. Well, that's wasn't the case now. It's like, okay, I started to be inconsistent in the gym again. I put back on a few pounds. That's all right. You stop, reassess, figure out your priorities again, and then start down that road again. And so recently, especially probably over the last month, I've kind of started to really start to push it again. And, I'm back down, probably weighing, I need to weigh today, but probably weigh around 194, 195. And I'm not big on the scale. I don't really think the numbers matter. I just have been keeping up with it just to track kind of the total amount of weight loss that I'm losing from the highest point I've been, which was around 295. I think was the most I weighed, just under 300. To where I'm at now, it's about 100 pounds so far. So that's the only reason I really even weigh myself. But I want to get down to about 170, 174, which would be a good weight for me. I'm not a tall dude. I'm about 5'5". So that's kind of the goal, So I lose about 20 to 25 more pounds. I'm going to be right where I want to be.
I feel just such a major kinship talking to you. I feel like I'm talking to another just universal version of myself. A lot of the things that you say really resonate with my journey personally, with just the mental aspect of thinking of the crashing of the waves, the world ending, the need and the fiery burn to just want to go so hard when you just need to just kind of slow down and take everything in and realize, because I think you and I are so used to over the years so much mental speed from either the actual physical drugs or just the idea of when's the next rate, when's the next thing, when's the next party, when's the next person, when's the next shot, when's the next this, that. So I really truly feel you when you say a lot of your words, because I mean, it really just speaks to my heart. So I really appreciate that.
Good. Yeah, man. I appreciate you saying that. And that's what's been great too about this journey that I've been on is just the, relationships I've formed and meeting different people and being able to have these conversations. And it's helped me just as much, getting to talk with folks and share my experience and my story and then learning other people's. And so I'm grateful for guys like you that, have platforms and are growing and building platforms that allow different people to come on and share their experience. Cause I think that's important and, really, really important in the world. That was a big thing, getting sober is hearing other people's success stories and hearing other people's journeys, hearing how bad it got for them and what they did to correct it. So just being able to have those conversations and then being bold enough and to do it and to be real and be honest. And, that's what's key, So, I feel the same way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it's a mind bending process to go through this journey and stay on that because, as you said before, I mean, there's multiple people that go through multiple rehabs over and over, or therapy, or they try getting sober, and I don't think a lot of people realize too that their relationship with food is something that ties deeply into the relationship they have with or without drugs and alcohol. So it's its own thing of, because a lot of people that I would hear from their stories, they didn't even really start eating a lot of food until they got sober again because, food was never really on their mind. It was always just go to the next ride. So I think it's great for people just to share that in general, especially men. Men these days are, I think, struggling pretty heavily with just having space to share that with other men and just being honest with them about where they're at on their journey, whether it's food or drugs and alcohol or just their plain mind, just being able to express to another man or another human being in general just that what you're going through is a major part of these conversations because it is about food and your relationship with it, but diving deeper into these more personal bits is really a pleasure of mine.
Yeah, yeah, same, dude. I love hearing um, other people's stories and their success as well, and it's definitely helped me and continues to motivate me and seeing, other people's accounts too that have been at one weight, and been really heavy in times and then got down to, a lower weight. There's even a guy that I think we follow each other on Instagram, and I think his username is fit to fat to or fit to fat to fit yeah. So it's like was fat, got fit, or was fit, got fat, and then got fit again. That's kind of like my situation a little bit too. Been fit the majority of my life, got out of shape, got gained a bunch of weight, and now getting back fit again. You don't realize how difficult that is. I didn't realize how difficult that actually is to do when I was younger, and I was into exercise and fitness, and I was working as a personal trainer. I used to have just really I couldn't understand people that were out of shape. I didn't understand it. I was one of those people that were so small minded when thinking about it and talking about it. I was also young at the time too, 22, 23, just a cocky young 23-year-old that's in really good shape. And, training other people, I just couldn't understand how people would let themselves get so out of shape, and it's like, why would you want to be that way? Why would you want to live that way? And then now for me, having experienced that and have been, having been one of those people that let themselves get that bad out of shape and then got back in shape after that, the level of difficulty that comes along with that. And I've done a lot of difficult things in my life. And this has been one of the more difficult things, especially as you get older. It just comes a lot harder to get that weight off and like just a hole that you can get in. I remember when I was almost 300 pounds, I was in the worst shape physically. And even though I was really happy, healthy mentally, it became, I started to get to where it was like, man, I can see how people get so out of shape and so heavy because it is so hard once you get in that space. You've got no energy. Your body's really just fighting against you to get in shape at that point. You've got no energy. You're tired all the time. You're all you want to do is eat. Getting up and moving around, it's just hard to do. So you do more and more of that, and you just get in this hole that's really hard to get out of. And so that's why, I respect hearing other people's stories and seeing other people's, experiences with being being in shape, getting out of shape, then getting back in shape. That's not an easy thing to do. So,
No, absolutely. As well as like people don't really think about it in the aspect of people are so quick to always putting it on one side of folks that are, quote unquote heavier, that's the only form of it. Because I mean, I grew up swimming, I was a lifeguard, I was in pretty darn good shape in high school as a swimmer. I mean, I didn't have any, significant muscles, but I was there. And it fell to the wayside in my 20s. And I've never been just genetically like a heavier person. And I can see where people completely, because I'm 34. So I know what you're saying, where you get to that point in your age where you're like, I totally see where people get out of shape. And this is me speaking from my own personal journey. When I started working out again, I didn't realize just how weak I was. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 300. I mean, yes, it does. But I'm saying it doesn't matter if you're 300 pounds or 160. If you can't lift the bar, like I couldn't even barely lift a 45-pound bar and do regular workouts and do anything. So when I finally just humbled myself and didn't give a crap about the embarrassment of just putting on no weight, lifting with a lighter bar, scaling every single workout for 3 years now, until just recently I've started to be able to finally do barely like what the RX weight or stuff like that. I mean, and it still doesn't matter to me because I still scale stuff if I need to. I'm still learning how to do a lot of movements in the gym. And that's okay with me because I just accept that. And I don't really care what anybody besides my coach, who's the professional showing me how to lift weights, says, because it's for
Right.
my body and I'm trying to, better that. So I think that's so cool that you speak that kind of knowledge as well, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm the same way. Like, especially with CrossFit stuff, coming into it, I could barely do the warm up.
Me too. Yeah.
Getting down on the ground was just so hard. Getting down on the ground and getting back up, and you're talking about lifting just the bar. Well, it's like when I was in treatment center, my body, I was just so beat down physically from only doing drugs all the time, not eating. Basically killing myself with fentanyl. And I got to, when I finally felt like I was capable and ready to try to exercise some, they had a little weight room down there on the property, and guys could go down there and lift and stuff. And I knew I wanted to get back at lifting again and get back at exercise, but it was just such a challenge. And I went down to that little weight room and could barely do the bar as well. And I felt so physically weak. But by the time I had left, so it was a 3-month program, and I probably didn't start working out until 2 or 3 weeks into it, and I started going, and I was consistent and regular and just worked it back up. And so I went from literally not being able to hardly lift the barbell on bench to, like, I think I hit 295, on bench max by the time I left. So it was just a cool thing. It was a cool process. And it was just a good reminder that, hey, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how weak we get, no matter how beat down we get in life, this is a great example of what you can do if you just stop the bad things that you're doing, stop the unhealthy things that you're doing. That's the first thing. Just put an end to that. And then slowly but surely start, the process of working at correcting it and doing the work that it takes to make those changes. And slowly but surely, you can overcome it. You can get, and I don't mean just working out. I mean, whatever you're doing in life, you can overcome it. And being able to, a lot of people are intimidated by CrossFit and stuff like that, or gyms and in general, any gym, just going into a gym. But that was another thing, it doesn't matter, if you're doing the RX or if you're doing the scaled or whatever, if you're just showing up and barely doing anything like I was in the beginning, just show up. and do what you can. And then when you're able and capable of making those adjustments and pushing yourself a little bit more, that's when you want to do it. Go ahead and try to do it, But at the same time, just remember that showing up and putting forth any effort and just doing a little bit is better than not, When I was trying to lose that weight, I remember the first time I started trying to exercise again. I'd gained all this weight. I was close to 300 pounds. And I remember just telling myself, well, you know what? Just get up and walk for 5 minutes. Go outside in your neighborhood and just walk around the block one time. That's all you do today. It's better than what you did yesterday, which was nothing. So that's kind of how I started. It doesn't seem like much, but man, it was more than I did the day before. And that's what I try to build on.
Yeah, that 1% every day, that 1% better every day type of attitude is really where it's at. And I've tried to take every day, just like when I was in rehab too, where they're like one day at a time, dude, just one day at a time. Because right now you're sober, and that's awesome. They're like, it might, there's like a lot of guys that, go off and, relapse and do all that stuff. But that's also part of it. I mean, I remember the conversations I was having with my house manager where he's like, dude, it took me 6 times to go to rehab. Like I took it was the 6th time that it actually worked. And, it's, for me, I think rehab was just kind of the big moment because I had already been on probation for 3 years and had to do another 2. And so a total of 5 in 2023 with like 81 days in jail total. So all these weird things of just, I never want to do that again. I never want to live like that. I never want to do that. And kind of earlier, what you're saying too, is getting your mental space really correct. And then that's when the work began of 1,000 steps of, just the journey of starting with 1. So it's pretty cool, man. I'm really, really happy we've been able to have this conversation. I'm really I'm honored. I'm truly inspired by these words that you've been able to share with me. It's really touched my heart and my soul.
Man, I appreciate it, dude. I appreciate it. And like I said, I've just enjoyed being able to come on and share my experience and get to know you and chat through it. And I love just the opportunity that I get, to be able to do that. And my job is just to make sure that when I have those opportunities to try to do so in a way that is real and authentic. And I think a lot of people have found, and I know that I find help, I find a lot of strength when I hear other people do the same thing. And so it's kind of feels like a responsibility almost, like, when you have those moments in life where you've gone through something, just like you talking about going to rehab, it's like a responsibility almost now to share that, and talk about it, because you never know who's going to hear it. And even if one person, gets something out of it, one person hears it and it affects their life and changes their life in a positive way, then, I think that's a success right there.
For sure. I mean, yeah, most people don't expect to hear it because so many people are just so used to so many people drinking and doing drugs and doing all this other wild activities. So it's cool just to be on the other side and to have a healthy lifestyle and a, full capacity working brain and body to honor and just to be able to take care of it, feed it, just nurture it with everything good in my life. But thank you so much for coming on today, Evan. You continue to organically inspire me. I think we're building a wonderful friendship now. I think I would love to have you on in the future and just keep checking in with you, keep talking to you what you're doing, just keep, seeing what that journey is up to.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I appreciate it, dude. I've enjoyed it today.
Heck yes. Well, tell people where they can find you. Tell people where they can follow you. Tell people about your, comedy spots. Any of, thing you want to plug, please go.
Cool. Yeah. So pretty much if you search Fit to Serve, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you'll find me. It's really on Instagram. It's Fit to Serve with the number 1 at the end, because I think someone's got the Fit to Serve handle. So,
yeah.
But Fit to Serve, it pops up. You'll find me there. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and there's my website is fittoserve.co. So there, if you are looking for any discounts or codes with any of the brands I work with, you can definitely find those there. Also on that website, man, it'll usually tell you about what's coming next. Got a few things happening. So you could check out information there. And there's also a way to contact me on the website if you have any questions or, any brands that I work with. A lot of them contact me through that email. So happy to connect.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, keep your plates clean and your hearts full. Thank you for joining me today on our flavorful journey here at Clean Plates. If you enjoyed our exploration into the world of food and the stories behind our eating habits, be sure to subscribe where you get your podcasts. And don't forget to share your own food stories on my personal page at Brian Waterleaf or the Clean Plates podcast page on Instagram. And remember, every plate has a story, and we are here to discover them together. So stay curious, keep exploring, and continue to nurture your relationship with food. I'm Brian Romaine, and until next time, keep your plates clean and your hearts full.